Welcome to EventNewsDXB. Before we begin, I've got a quick favour to ask. There's one simple way that you can support our show, and that's by hitting that follow or subscribe button on the app you're listening to the show on right now. It really does make a huge difference in helping us get the show out there to as many people as possible. So please give us a hand and click that button right now. Thanks a bunch.
Event News DXB.
You're listening to the Event News DXB podcast, your behind-the-scenes look into the world of events in Dubai, the UAE and the MENA region. I'm Ian Carless, and each week I'll bring you the latest news, industry trends and insider stories, shaping one of the world's most dynamic event markets. From professional insights to Dubai's most inspiring success stories, we've got everything you need to stay ahead in the ever-evolving event industry. So, whether you're an event planner, a brand manager, or just someone passionate about the power of events, you're in the right place. This week, we're talking to Whatever Entertainment's head honcho, Ean Thorley. After joining the then fledgling MTV at the tender age of 19 in London, Ian went on to enjoy a long and illustrious career as an executive producer with the Music Network in Europe, Singapore, and Australia, as well as spearheading the channel's launch in China. Following a 4-year stint in Shanghai, Ian relocated to Dubai in 2020 to oversee television production for Expo 2020. He now runs his own entertainment production company, Whatever Entertainment. Ian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, this is going to be very strange, isn't it? Hello, Ian. Hello, Ian. Yeah. Now, full disclosure, I guess, for anybody that happens to be listening, hopefully there's a few, not just our mothers. Ian and I first met how long ago?
God, 30 years?
Was it 30? Oh, yeah.
No, maybe it's 40.
No, shush, man. It's not 40.
91.
No, yeah.
Yeah, 40 years.
Okay, it's a long time ago for anybody that's good or better at mental math than I am. It was a long time ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, this episode, I mean, it's traditionally about events. And so we're going just slightly off-piste with this episode. Ian's background is television events or televising events. So, am I right there?
Yeah, kind of big scale productions events. So we don't do the wedding videos, but we do.
Not even your own?
No, gosh. So large scale events that we produce. So with outside broadcast trucks, big cameras, and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what we do. There's enough people doing the smaller events.
Yeah.
in the world.
Well, let's just very briefly start at the beginning. How did you get into MTV? Yes.
So many moons ago, I was doing hospital radio, and they wouldn't let me have a radio show because they thought I wasn't experienced enough. I was 17 or 18 at the time, and I found a book of all the TV networks around the world, and I was flicking through the pages, and I saw this thing called MTV. Didn't have cable, had or satellite at home, so I had no idea what it was. I thought, that sounds fun. So I wrote to the program director because I knew what a program director was because I was working at hospital radio. Anyway, so I wrote this letter to the program director, and this beautiful lady called Lauren Levine at MTV Europe said, "Hey, come and intern for 4 weeks." So I went down, went to the office in London, and I did the job in 2 days. And then I just went around every different department because it was like 80 people. It was very, very small MTV Europe at the time, back in 1989, because it launched in 87. And I kind of got a job as an operations assistant. And then at 19, the operations manager went, "Oh, I want to go and do on-air promos now." So I was the operations manager at 19. It was nuts, right? And I heard about MTV Hong Kong launching. So I said, "I want to do that." And all my friends were like, "But you don't know anyone in Hong Kong." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm sure I'll make friends." I mean, you've got some people who stayed at MTV for 20 years in the same city. I mean, I moved every year. I moved every 2 or 3 years to a different MTV. Now, with MTV Asia, as you know, we launched in Hong Kong as part of the Star TV network. Then Murdoch bought Star TV, and Viacom, which owns MTV, were like, "Yeah, nah." So we relocated to New York and then relaunched in Singapore as MTV Asia.
And that was where our paths crossed, wasn't it? Well, actually, in Hong Kong initially, and then later in Singapore. Yeah. Let's just get back on track. So I'm going to sort of fast forward to your event days. And I think a lot of that probably happened when you were with MTV Australia. Is that right?
No, we started with MTV Asia. So MTV Asia, our MD, we were launching flags. We launched India twice because it was one was Star TV and one was Viacom. Then we launched MTV Philippines, MTV China, MTV Indonesia, Malaysia. We had a 4-hour playout on Malaysian TV. So we decided to produce the first ever Chinese music award show.
Right.
So CMAs or VMAs. And that was interesting. We hired a director out of the UK. We had some people come from MTV Europe. I produced it and exec produced it. And we originally were going to do it on the 4th of April. But in Chinese numbers, that means death. So we changed that.
Yeah.
So, and then we were told we couldn't use a production company in Beijing. We had to work with CCTV. And the Red Army were our security detail. So we produced this. I mean, it was mental, right? But one of the things that was great about it is this, we had an English director, a Chinese director from CCTV, lovely guy called Zhao. And now this is back in 1997 or 98. But me, my co-producer, Thomas Savenhagen, I think you'd remember. Mm-hmm. We had a design of the show, and they brought a model of the show, which we generally do for our big shows. We have a model. I mean, we can look at camera angles and what works and what doesn't work. Now you can do it all digitally. And they had all this kind of splattered paint over the aluminium. And we're like, no, that's great. But all the splattered paint, we don't want that because that's not the design, right? But we had like some big named artists playing. We then ended up, then this Chinese opera singer, very famous opera singer came out. And my lighting designer, director were kind of giggling. And all the Chinese staff were just transfixed with this amazing woman who was just like singing amazing. I said, guys, this is their, be culturally sensitive. But the show was a great success. The president of MTV was there, Bill Rodey. It was good.
Do you see more events, or do you feel that the appetite for these big award show kind of things and music events, televising them has gone a little bit now? Were you doing more of them back in the day, or?
Yeah, I was doing a lot more back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I think the appetite, the Golden Globes, the Oscars will always be televised, but they're not going to get the huge numbers that they used to get. For example, the VMAs. Why is MTV doing the VMAs? Because they don't play music. So, and that was a cultural shift with MTV because we didn't own the IP. So all these music videos were owned by the record label.
So when you're planning out these big shows, what's the process? I mean, where do you begin?
So the first thing we do, obviously we pick a date, but then I would sit down with our production designer and say, all right, this is what I want. And when we did the MTV Video Music Awards in Australia in 2008, ironically we were in LA, and we went through this very amazing bookshop, and we saw this stage design for an opera. I went, that would be wicked. So we used the basis of that to build the stage design for the MTV Awards. So we do that. Then the designer makes a model. Mm-hmm. We then start working with TAR about talent and about bands we want. And if I'll suggest, there's a band I saw or whatever, we bring them on board. And then basically, we start getting all the crew together, lighting designers, director. And then we spend 5 days building and then 2 days rehearsing and 1 day show, and then it's all over. And generally the press are happy, and then it takes 2 days for the negative press to hit. So we do a show on a Thursday. So the red carpet and all the socials going in the paper in those days on the weekend. So we get the weekend press. So we do the show on a Thursday, get news on a Friday, then Saturday, Sunday is the kind of glitzy papers on the weekend, and then the following Monday or Tuesday is the bad press hits.
So when you're talking about in terms of the size of the production, what are we talking here? How many cameras?
So typically for MTV, I would imagine, I think we'd use anywhere between 15 to 20 cameras. We'd have a Jimmy Jib, which would be a crane. Mm-hmm. We'd have a Steadicam. We'd have we like the green room. And then we have backstage hosts, which is our sponsorship commitment. So when we go to a commercial break, we would go to one of our presenters, and they'd be standing in front of a Coca-Cola or branded, doing links and interviews with artists, and then they would go to a commercial break, and then we'd come back. But generally, it's a large crew. I mean, it's anywhere between 120 to 400 people. So when we did the YouTube Symphony Orchestra in Sydney, we had 1,000 production staff.
Oof.
It was a big show. It was an amazing show. And we did that with Google.
And what's the kind of lead time, would you say?
That was about 6 months. But this year, actually, or last year, when we started working on New Year's Eve for EMAR, for Burj Khalifa, I started in March. 9 months pre-production.
So for those that aren't familiar with Ian and his company, whatever, Ian's been responsible for how many of the last 10 years of
2012.
Dubai fireworks you've been doing it?
12 years.
12 years, right. So, and just to clarify, so your role in that is obviously you're not out there arranging all the fireworks show.
No.
You're
So
very much responsible for televising the fireworks.
Yeah, so there's a fireworks company that are hired by EMA.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lighting company who do the visuals on the Burj Khalifa. We just do the broadcast, and we work with the Dubai TV. So we bring a team of about 12 to 14 people from the production side, from my side, and that's a producer, graphics producer, etc., and then we bring in Dubai TV with their 400 staff of cameramen, engineers. And we basically spend about 4 days setting up, and then we have rehearsals, and then we do the show.
So I have to ask you then, were you in charge during the year that they decided they weren't going to have any fireworks? And if so, how did that go down?
So I said, when I heard that, I said, well, that's silly because a birthday cake you have on your birthday, fireworks you have on New Year's Eve. So the marketing chap who's there said they want you to do something different. And I'm like, well, the birthdays and New Year's Eve, you shouldn't mess with that. But the more interesting one that I did was when the Dress Hotel burnt down.
Oh.
So it was 9:34. We'd just done the fountain show, camera 6, which is on the opposite side of the lake. There's a fire above your head. We're like, what? And so our tech director steps out of the OB band, looks up and goes, holy shit. And then so we basically pack up. The army comes in, rips the OB truck out, takes the generator trucks out. We've got generators there, right?
Yeah.
All full of diesel.
Yeah.
And so we then go to the media tent and we're just going, wow. It just went up so quickly. It was amazing. Then we went to crisis management. We took over Red Lobster Cafe in Dubai Mall to be our crisis management center. Then we got kicked out of the Dubai Mall because they thought the building might collapse. Then we moved to another location. So we had no cameras. But luckily, that year we'd been asked to do all the fireworks shows across the whole of Dubai.
Right.
So we started at Business Bay, obviously at Burj Khalifa, then went down to Jumeirah, Burj Al Arab. So I had 2 helicopters flying. And I always say recording camera. And thankfully they did. So they landed, we got the content, and then we spent the next day editing a show together, trying to cut around the fire and the smoke.
Because obviously it's not just the local market that you're doing the show for. I mean, arguably, it's not even the local market you're doing the show.
1.1 billion people.
You're doing it for the worldwide audience, aren't you?
So we've got the news organizations, AP, Reuters. We have individual channels taking it. This year we worked with a company called TVU, and they did all the digital as well as free-to-air content distribution. So it goes around. I mean, we had got the report yesterday, and they're just channels that you think, really? You know, especially across Africa and Asia, and it's like, wow, okay, because you have the general stuff, BBC and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, about 1.1 billion people watch it worldwide.
What did you take away from that in terms of emergency planning or contingency planning? So say that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, so we work with the command center, with EMA Command Center, which is Dubai Police, Dubai EMA Security. So we have a range of procedures that we take. So we have content that we play on the screens. If there's people missing, so we have slides. We also have a backup plan. We have a backup OB truck, so we can relocate that with different cameras.
Is that something that you've had in place post the fire?
Post the fire. So post fire.
So pre-fire, you didn't have that.
No.
Wow.
So we have a backup. We have a backup OB. We have backup SNGs, which are satellite trucks, so we can get content out. Because last year, for example, there was nothing bad, but the fireworks were delayed by 48 seconds. Yeah. So we're in the OB truck and we're going, did we go too early? And we're like, no, it's midnight. So there are technical issues, and we react accordingly. So if it's something that's really serious, we'll go to a wide shot. If there's a crowd management issue, which there has been for many years, but now it's all been sorted, which is great. So it is. So yeah, we have procedures in place, and that's for any event really, apart from the one we did in.
But certainly taken more seriously post that year.
Yeah.
Backtracking to your MTV days. What are some of the things that that perhaps the public don't know that were going on behind the scenes at some of the award shows that you were part of that you can talk about?
When we had Snoop Dogg at the MTV Awards, we had it in this huge arena, right? But we had to turn off all the fire alarms because he was getting Mr. Snoop. He was getting his wacky backy on. So we had three huge dressing rooms. So we had one dressing room for his security guards, one dressing room for his mates, another dressing room for Snoop, and we had to have a fire attendants around the whole, like way more than we'd normally have, the fire department, just in case there's a fire breaking up because Snoop wanted to smoke some weed. And I was like, okay, that's cool. What are you going to do? But yeah, but right down the board, it was an interesting time. But I wouldn't exchange it for the world. I mean, it was an amazing experience.
So, as I think most people know, MTV went through quite a big transformation, didn't it? Where it, as you alluded to, it moved away from playing music videos and very much into the genre of reality television.
IP.
16 and what was it, Up the Duff or whatever it was called.
16
and pregnant, was that it? Yeah, close. Yeah, it hasn't gone away, has it? Reality television. I mean, we've got a show here in Dubai, don't we? Dubai Bling. What is it about reality television? Do you think that?
I think reality TV really took hold probably about 2 decades ago, right? I think people are just consumed by this pop culture of content, and they just need it super fast. If there was a terrible story that came out about a personality, the next day the news cycle works so quickly they'll be forgotten tomorrow, right? But I think with shows, I'm glad that Dubai Bling's being made. It's being made by Rise Studios, who I'm a big fan of, with Amanda, who runs the company. I think it's great that they're making, who I love, and I think what's great, whether you like the show or not, at least they're making content, and they're making local content. And I think this is really important. And this happened with MTV years ago, where we were at MTV Europe, we're a pan-European network. And suddenly countries were like, Germany were like, we want our own MTV. We don't want to play, we had music from all different European countries, all played on the same playlist. So that people wanted their own kind and their own music. And I think that with countries, and certainly with the GCC, Saudi's making films now, which is fantastic. A friend of mine's produced a horror movie for Saudi that came out last year, based on a very famous book. Rise Studios is in the market of producing local content for the local market, and that could be anywhere, be Arabic, or could be Indian or Pakistani, or subcontinent. So that's a good sign. That for me, that's a great sign. I don't do long form content. I don't produce long form content. We produced a Chinese kids show in Shanghai, all in Mandarin, which was amazing. But I think for Dubai Bling, it's whether you like it or not, it's local content with local people, local crew. They're not flying loads of people in from the UK or from the US. I think that's a great thing.
Speaking of local content and local crew, you've been in Dubai 5 years now?
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years now. You have your own company now, Whatever Entertainment. Tell us a little bit about that. What kind of shows are you hoping to do with Whatever? So
Whatever was born in 2007 in Sydney, Australia, and with a mission to create big events, big shows. We actually came to Dubai to launch the cricket stadium, and then 2008 hit, and that disappeared. But generally, we produce a lot of awards. We produced a lot of award shows. We did shows around the planet. We did stuff for Google. With Whatever now in Dubai, obviously the GCC is certainly it's probably the last place where it's a new frontier, new opportunities. So obviously we're doing stuff in Saudi, we're doing stuff here. So what we envisage we have kind of three main components. One is entertainment, concerts, award shows, etc. New to us at the moment is sport. So we haven't really done a lot of sport. I've done the cricket in the Caribbean for 3 years, the T20 championships. We did a whole bunch of stuff with Nike. I did the Porsche Carrera Cup championships in Asia. But now we're getting a lot more invites from clients to cover sporting events. And then the other is kind of more business, which is kind of, we did the Google 36-hour live broadcast for their hard drive business, which is called Next, I think. That was nice. That was a live 36-hour show across 5 continents. So for us at Whatever, we the reason we call the name Whatever is we say it a lot, but it has 2 meanings. Whatever we can do for you, we can do. If we don't like you, whatever. So that's kind of the marking of what we under the brand of Whatever. We've got a new guy on board, Patch Khan, who's an ex a broadcast senior vice president of Warner's, ex-Warner's, Sony Pictures, and Discovery. So he's coming on board as our technical and technology director. So we've done some pretty gnarly shows since.
How tough a market is it to break into? Who's your competition?
Well, there's a lot of competition. Well, what we do, our main competition is probably Done and Dusted, or ex-MTV colleagues of ours. But in the region, we're not cheap, because we come with experience, right? And it's always the same. Clients will say, "Oh, well, can you do it for X?" And you're like, "Well, the price point for me is not the issue. You're buying my 40, 30 years of experience, right?" So we generally get recalled because we have that experience, and certainly on the couple of shows that are coming up in the next couple of weeks and months. The market is tough, and people are always, we want a budget for a show, and they want to chop it in half, right? So you go, well, that's fine, but you have to work out what you have to sacrifice something, because the money is the money.
Now, one of the shows I know you did last year as well was Untold. Tell us a little bit about that.
We came across Untold through a personal connection. We had a chat with them. They've been talking to serious production companies about doing their broadcast, their live stream, and it was across 4 days, starting at 5 p.m. and going to like 5 a.m. It was gnarly. For us, it wasn't about making money on this show. I love house music. I love EDM. I love concerts. And it was the biggest EDM festival in the whole of Dubai, backed by the Dubai government, or Dubai tourism.
So I know you were also involved in Expo as well. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, so I did Expo twice. So the first time I came out in 2020 or 2019. And then that pandemic thing happened that everyone got scared about. So I did a month's work at Expo.
Yeah, that short period of time where everybody sat twiddling their thumbs.
So we did. So that was shut down. So the Expo was delayed for a year. We came back in 2021. I was the head of production for Dubai TV. So my job was to ensure that I did all the live content. So we were producing on average 10 live shows a day. So that would be anything from every morning we did a national day for a country. Then there'd be another thing that we did, be a talk, and then we'd end the day with a massive concert. So, but we've done a lot of shows at Expo, and I think it's an interesting site that they're trying to do.
Where do you see this side of the industry, of the event industry, going in this region?
Well, I think in this region we're quite lucky. Unlike, say, the UK or Asia or Australia, you've got competing markets. So you've got, say, Saudi are trying to take over everything, right? Sports. Qatar are trying to do it. Dubai, Abu Dhabi are trying to do it. So you've got this great competition between all these countries who are trying to get the customer's dollar or the tourism. So there are going to be these large-scale events. There are going to be these opportunities to produce content because these countries need it. So I think the market is still strong. What these companies are doing now, or these countries are doing now, is, okay, if you want our dollars, if you want our local currency, you have to have a company in my country. So we've set up Well Ever Live here in Dubai. It's a Dubai media company. We are going to sell up Saudi at some point, but we're just seeing what the market does first, because everyone's flocking to Saudi. And I think we're just going to hold back and go, and our chairman's like, just hold back. Just let's see what happens.
Talk to me about talent. I mean, how easy is it to get the people that you need in order to do these shows? Because, I mean, I'd love to be able to sit here and say all the talent that we need is on the ground here in the region.
Well, some of it is.
But the reality is, yes, some of it is, and some of it isn't.
So I'm going to take it back, step back about what we did at MTV. And our job was to go into these countries, these cities, and create a new media landscape. So that's training. I hate using the word locals, but the local people, generally young kids coming out of university, or some kids who got some media training or no media training.
Which is, which is exactly what I was doing with MTV in the Philippines.
Exactly. So throughout our whole career, we've always been nurturing talent. We've always been looking and developing that skill set so we could get kicked out and they will run their own media network for their own country, for their own nationality. I think that was what we've achieved. Now, that's kind of happening with us at whatever, with who we know who we can hire. We know, we've got fantastic EVS operators. We have fantastic VisRT operators, so captioning. We have fantastic vision mixers. We have fantastic cameramen.
Yeah.
We had this one particular cameraman on New Year's Eve for this year, or last year, who I was just blown away. And the camera team were amazing this year. I mean, absolutely flawless.
Yeah.
So what I do when we get asked to do a big show, we'll probably do 50% or 60% local crew, and then 40%, and it's international, which would be the kind of the heads of department, the head of lighting, head of DO, or the head of cameras, head of broadcast truck. But generally, what we're trying to do is bring, for example, when we were doing COP 28, I was asked to hire all these people. And I'm like, yeah, we got fantastic people. We had people coming in from India. We had people coming from Pakistan. We had fantastic people who we know and have worked with and were fantastic. And then in the end, the client went, no, I'm just going to bring everyone from the UK. I'm like, that's so shit. Yeah. You've got to develop the local market. Which is a shame,
because then there's not that transfer of knowledge, is
there?
No.
So in terms of budget, managing it for other productions, for New Year's Eve, for example, I bring one person from international, and that's the director. I do have directors here, but the client wants to have a big international name director. And but everyone else is local.
Let's talk a little bit about sort of finance and budgets, just briefly. I know certainly, from both the production work I've done in the past and also now from, having warehouse for the event venue, clients aren't too happy about paying much up front. In fact, there was a certain period up until about 2008, 2009, where we got no deposit whatsoever for any kind of production.
Yeah,
and it was only sort of 2008, 2009 when obviously the financial crisis and companies just didn't have any money. So clients begrudgingly had to put up, 50%. So how does a company like Whatever manage its cash flow? How are you getting past the stumbling block here of clients being reluctant to put too much money up front?
Well,
and then not only that, it's then the long tail in terms of often getting paid as well, because 30 days, I wish I didn't have to say this, but in this region 30 days is never 30 days.
Well, we've been very lucky. So for New Year's Eve, we get paid 1 month after the event, and we get paid on time. We used to get paid 3 days after the event. So we've been quite lucky in that regard. In terms of the other shows, we will demand either 100% up front, 70%, or at least 50%. But it's structured. So 50% on signing, 30% on pre-production, then show day the remaining. So we at the moment, touch wood, we've been very, very lucky. We get paid on time, or we get paid in advance. So for example, because our suppliers will go, well, we want 100% up front. So,
absolutely.
So for example, when we went to if we go to another country, we're taking crew from here and a kit. We have to cover insurance for the team, and then basically the fee up front. But it's a challenge. And when you run your own business, there's peaks and troughs of cash flow, always hard. But I think so far we've been okay.
So before we wrap up, I absolutely know that you love your music. I mean, both of us cannot work for MTV without loving our music.
I love my music.
As you know, I'm now restocking my vinyl collection. Yeah. What's on your playlist?
So at the moment, it ranges, and there's 3 types of genres that I listen to. Generally, more often than not, I listen to, it's a podcast called Deep House Moscow, so house music.
Okay.
90s and 2000s gangster hip-hop.
Okay.
And Beethoven's Fifth Symphony.
Big discrepancy there.
So on the day-to-day, it's house music. I love house music. And then if I'm in the car, Dr. Dre, I named my dog Snoop Dogg, right? So I had this beautiful white golden retriever, and we called him Snoop. So it goes, Snoop. And respect to Snoop Dogg, D-O-G-G, gangster hip-hop all the way, G.
So finally, what are you looking forward to in 2025? Personally and professionally. Now, personally, I know you have a new addition to the family.
I have a new addition, number 554 baby has been born, Amira, who's born a few days ago.
Congratulations.
To my lovely wife, thank you. I think professionally, what we're looking at, we we are moving into kind of the sporting side. So we're working with a big client at the moment in America on some sporting stuff. So I think this year, probably a few more shows in Saudi, and a few more sporting events, as well with all the other stuff that we do as well as like entertainment. But I'm kind of really pushing to do more sport.
Ian, it's a pleasure as
always, mate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Event News DXB was presented by myself, Ian Carless. The studio engineer and editor was Roy DeMonte. The executive producer was myself and Joe Morrison. And this podcast is a co-production between Warehouse 4 and W4 Podcast Studio Dubai. And if you haven't done so already, please do click that follow or subscribe button. See you next time.
Event News DXB.